Edition of the Magic Latest podcast where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host Jalon Dixon, and today we've got a couple of things to get into on this Friday morning. But before we get started, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers and trying to become one of the biggest Orlando Magic pages on the YouTube platform. So remember to hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. The NBA season is less than a month away, so you want to be tapped in. If you're an Orlando Magic fan, join the fan club. We are going to be locked in all 82 games plus the postseason because you already know what's going to happen. First off, let's start off with Tristan da Silva. So in yesterday's episode, there was an entire glazing section focusing on Anthony Black. And if you guys check that episode out, I went on for about a 5 to 7 minute tangent talking about the expectations of Anthony Black this upcoming season and the fact that this is a guy who the Orlando Magic are putting a lot of faith in to take a step in year 3 that puts him in an echelon where we're having a conversation around him being a real two-way wing for this team, getting real minutes and fighting for a spot where maybe he could even be a starting guard on this team and a 3-guard lineup next to Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Desmond Bane, Jalen Suggs, and really use his 6'9" frame as a versatile weapon on this team in certain lineups where this team can play faster, more athletic, up and down the floor, and just flat out become a defensive nightmare because of the switchability across the board. Tristan da Silva is in that same bucket. And shout out to our guys over at Orlando Magic Daily. They did a breakdown for the one question of every non-starter this upcoming season for the Orlando Magic. And I want to focus on Tristan da Silva, who they said the question for him is, can da Silva get a boost from his stellar Eurobasket performance? Now, we covered all of Eurobasket from start to finish as Team Germany, led by Franz Wagner, along with somebody like Tristan da Silva, as well as Dennis Schroeder and those guys, shout out to them, had a really strong run in the postseason for the summer run in Eurobasket. And Tristan da Silva had some really strong bright spots, including a big-time second half of the championship game. They say in the article there were not a ton of expectations for Tristan da Silva as he entered Eurobasket. He was the new kid with a developed and established team seeking a role. After an inconsistent rookie season in the NBA, nobody would have blamed him for taking his time and getting his feet wet. Instead, da Silva was stellar for Germany, quickly establishing himself as a solid 3-and-D wing who gained confidence as the tournament proceeded. He found his groove and delivered for the team in the knockout rounds, including the heave that helped turn the tide in the quarterfinal against Slovenia. The Magic are certainly hopeful that da Silva will bring that confidence to the Magic. Those 3-pointers would be huge for the team. Like I said, Tristan da Silva, I feel like similarly to everything I spoke on with Anthony Black the other day, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", versatile wing, 3-ball. Tristan da Silva already has a 3-ball, I think, established in much better faith than Anthony Black. I think that Tristan da Silva can be a knockdown 3-point shooter. Anthony Black is kind of getting around to it. I think that Anthony Black has more of a upside athletically than Tristan da Silva, but I think that the rangy wing defensive aspect of these two guys is something where we can deploy some crazy defensive lineups, and Anthony Black's defense can come around. Guys, I don't think you guys understand. There's a circumstance for this Orlando Magic team where the versatility across the board for this rotation has a chance where they put so much emphasis this summer so far of the first couple of days of training camp on playing faster. The way you play faster is you deploy more athleticism in your lineups. There is a potential lineup, just as I mentioned, Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Anthony Black, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. There's also a defensive-oriented lineup that you can run out there where guys can still knock the 3-ball down. And you have Jalen Suggs at the 1, Anthony Black at the 2, Franz Wagner at the 3. And then you have somebody like Tristan da Silva as a 3 or a 4. And then have somebody like Jonathan Isaac at your 5. And here you are, Jonathan Isaac. Most of his shots last season came from beyond the arc. Tristan da Silva can be a knockdown 3-point artist. Franz Wagner needs to get better at shooting the 3, but he can be a big-time facilitator in this group as a point forward. Jalen Suggs, defensive marksman. Anthony Black, if he continues to improve as a 3-point shooter, defensive marksman. Now you've got all of this defensive switchability and versatility with Franz Wagner as your lead ball handler and a bunch of 3-and-D wings/forwards around him that can play fast. They can play up and down on both sides of the floor in terms of shutting down transition, but also playing out out in transition. Shooting the three ball, you have 3 to 4 guys who are really capable of being able to put the ball in the basket from beyond the arc. Jonathan Isaac had a pretty weak season last year. I think he shot around 30% from beyond the arc last season. There's a chance that he might be able to step that up this year, and that'll be big for this Orlando Magic team if Anthony Black can take a step forward as a three-point shooter at 6'9", like I spoke on the other day. That's huge. Tristan Da Silva, knockdown three-point shooter. Jalen Suggs, knockdown three-point shooter. Franz Wagner, setup man. Like, there's the phrasing around training camp focusing on playing faster puts guys like Tristan Da Silva, Anthony Black, even Jace Richardson, I would say, in this light of, you can buy yourself minutes simply by the fact that this team wants to throw out as many versatile looks as humanly possible, right? I think this is where Noah Penda also gets a little bit of bump too, because that 6'9" ball handler can operate in transition, plays really hard, and has to kind of soak up the quote unquote hype man energy role that Mo Wagner typically presents. These are all guys who can take the philosophy that the Orlando Magic are trying to lean into, which is just playing more up and down basketball and not finding themselves in half court sets, not finding themselves always positioning the offense to have to take hard, difficult half court looks, and putting so much onus on guys like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner to create in open sets. Like this focus, this newly revamped focus offensively opens up opportunities for guys like Tristan Da Silva and Anthony Black to take their size, take their athleticism, take their versatility up and down the positional spectrum, and really buy themselves minutes. This team, if those two guys can step up and just be more, and again, Tristan Da Silva earlier on in even dating back to Eurobasket, the word that kept coming up is aggressiveness. Yesterday we talked about Anthony Black. The word that kept coming up is aggressiveness. They need these guys to be more assertive and aggressive both with and without the ball as scoring and defensive options. These guys can be two guys that you can place on your best perimeter options defensively, and these are two guys that you want to have as your wings on the opposite end to be able to help operate in transition, because they are both athletic and big enough to finish over around smaller defenders and play up and down. I'm excited for what Tristan Da Silva can bring, and if you guys kept up with Eurobasket, this is a dude who showed real strides as a 3-and-D wing, especially being a knockdown three-point shooter, as the article mentions, in big moments. If he can continue on that trajectory, that's huge. That is huge for this Orlando Magic team. Let's talk about another guy that I'm really hyped for this upcoming season, because I think that he's going to have to expand his role a little bit more, and it sounds like the Orlando Magic are already pushing that needle forward. Let's talk about Goga Bitadze. Goga Bitadze was recently discussing the idea of him becoming more and more confident in his three-point shot, and it sounds like the Orlando Magic also, after seeing what he was able to do in Eurobasket, want him to be a more consistent and want to be a higher volume three-point shooter. He says, I've been confident. I put the work in. I have good mechanics. I'm a shooter, and I proved that in Eurobasket. I have that green light. To go even further, he says, everybody knows I have good mechanics if we get into the details. I come in here, and if somebody looks at my workout, I'm a shooter, and I've proved that. So now, last year, I proved myself I can be a winner. I can actually have a huge role with the team and help the team win games. Now I think I have that little bit of extra confidence. Maybe I can take a shot or two, and it's not going to be nobody has ever said to me, I'll be honest with you, don't shoot the three. Nobody has ever said that to me. Jamal never said that, or anybody around the team. So I have that green light from them to take them. Not crazy shots, pull out the top, not to take step backs or something like that. But a wide open three is going to be a different game for everybody. Going to space the floor well. Me seeing myself still hitting those shots in Eurobasket and being a good shooter, I think it brings extra confidence, and it's going to translate here as well. Again, versatility and aggressiveness. I think that's like the bulletin board word of the year for this team. Franz, we want you to be more aggressive in terms of grabbing the ball off rebounds and pushing the ball forward. Jalen, we want you to be more aggressive about pushing the ball forward in transition. Desmond, we want you to be aggressive as a three-point shooter. Desmond's already been talking about wanting to beat his career high of three-point attempts per game, which was 8. I believe it was like 8.5. He wants to be in the 9, 10, 11 range. Be more aggressive as a high-volume three-point shooter. Paulo Banchero has to be more aggressive as a finisher around the rim in order to become more efficient, because settling for mid-range shots and being stuck in those situations without the kind of spacing they so desperately need puts him in position to be a inefficient scorer, despite the fact that he is a high-leverage offensive player that knows how to get to the free throw line at a high rate. Anthony Black, be more assertive both with the ball in your hands and defensively as a guy that needs to be able to attack multiple positions, move up and down the positional spectrum at 6'9", and guard the best perimeter player on defense. Tristan Da Silva, we want you to be more aggressive as a defender, and we want you to be more comfortable and confident shooting the three ball. Goga Batazde, we now want you to open up that three-point shooting aspect, and it's one of those things. Jeff Weltman actually spoke on this in one of the media day conferences. One of the media day conferences where he was speaking on the fact that Goga Batadze, when he was initially drafted, he was viewed as a stretch big, and now they're going to lean this Orlando Magic team, who of course did not draft him, but this Orlando Magic team is going to lean into that initial skill set, especially coming off of a Eurobasket where he did hit some big three-point shots and was a guy who showed his ability to stretch the floor. That's the biggest thing. This team, you want to use the word aggressiveness? Here's a team philosophy around aggressiveness. This team needs to be more aggressive about hunting three-point shots. Of course, you don't want to fall into this weird habit of trying to be the Golden State Warriors or trying to be the Houston Rockets of old with James Harden and those guys. No, you're not trying to be dunks and threes, but this team, with the versatility that they have up and down the positional spectrum, I keep using that phrase because it's so important. They have so many guys that are between 6'5", 6'7", 6'9", all the way up to 6'11". Like this team, that like their shortest guys are Jace Richardson and Tyus Jones. But beyond that, this team has real positional size that can where almost I can probably name 6 or 7 guys in their main rotation that can guard multiple positions strictly based off of their positional versatility from a size perspective. Jalen Suggs can guard 1, 2s, and small ball 3s. Franz Wagner can guard 1s, 2s, 3s, and small ball 4s. Same thing can be said for Paulo Banchero. I think in open space, he can guard 3s and 4s really strong, and even small ball 5s. Jonathan Isaac, I think, is really good at guarding in space. I don't think you put him on a guard, but I think that he can guard in space in a real way. And of course, we know defensively he can operate against 4s and 5s at a high rate. Anthony Black, 6'9". Tristan Da Silva, 6'9", or 6'8", 6'9". Two guys that I think can guard up and down the positional spectrum from 1 through small ball 4. Like if you go down the list, these guys, I think Goga Batadze, despite the fact that I think he's like an average defender at best, I think his ability to move up and down the lineup as a 4 or a 5 and stretch the floor as a three-point shooter gives him real value offensively. That's where his value comes. It's on the offensive end. He can play the 4 or the 5 for you, and his ability to stretch the floor now gives you another little wiggle, another wrinkle, that you didn't have before, because Wendell Carter Jr. is not really a stretch 5. Jonathan Isaac, despite the fact that most of his shots from last season were mainly from beyond the arc, he's not a true reliable stretch 5 if he's going to shoot 30 to 32% from beyond the arc. Goga Batadze gives you that element that they haven't had at the 4 or 5 spot, which is a reliable three-point shooter. Now he has the green light to be that guy at a higher volume. He said obviously he can't be doing crazy step back threes and stuff like that, but does he have the green light of, if you're open, shoot that jump? Yes. And that's huge, both for his confidence, as he mentioned, but that's also huge for the confidence of this team to understand that being more aggressive and hunting that three-point shot is a part of what's going to change the narrative. Part of how you change the narrative, being one of the most historically bad three-point shooting teams in NBA history last season, is by the same way they say a confident shooter never stops shooting. Just because they start 0-7, they don't just stop shooting, they keep firing. That same thing could be said from a team philosophy perspective of, yes, we were a bad three-point shooting team last year. You know what we do? We go get 2 or 3 better three-point shooters, and we empower our other guys to say, yo, keep shooting that pill, because there's going to come a point where those law of averages are going to kick in, and we're going to go from one of the worst three-point shooting teams to one of the higher volume three-point shooting teams, and hopefully what follows is that we're also one of the best three-point shooting teams with that. And if you pair that with Apollo Banchero, who gets to the free throw line 8-9 times a game, if you pair that with a Franz Wagner who's capable of averaging 20 plus points per game, that's lethal. So I'm interested to see just how much Goga Bitadze takes threes this upcoming season. We've heard in the summertime for a lot of different guys, right? I think a perfect example is like dudes like Anthony Davis or Ben Simmons, where it always sounds like in the summer there's this encouragement of like, oh, I'm going to take more threes. I'm going to take a career high in threes. And then you have someone like Anthony Davis who goes the first 3-4 games of the season and only attempts maybe a 3 a game, and you find out that he's kind of, he's efficient from beyond the arc, but he doesn't really take the amount of threes you would think he would for a guy who prefers to play the 4, right? Same thing you could say with Ben Simmons. You see him shoot these threes in the open gyms in the summer, and then the actual season comes, he gets 3-point opportunities and he doesn't take them. Will they really put a ton of emphasis on Goga Bitadze leaning into actually taking those 3-point shots? Only time will tell. But if they do, I think that this team can really build off that, because now that's another guy when you pair with everything they've already done this summer and everything they spoke on about the 3 ball by saying now with Goga Bitadze, we got another knockdown shooter, and he's at our big man spot, something we haven't had the liberty of leaning into. Maybe not liberty, I'm gonna use that word for now just because I can't think of what I want to lean into instead. But you're in a position now to be able to use a skill set like that you haven't had in the past, and I think that's big time. Speaking of confidence, Jalen Suggs said that he believes that him and Desmond Bane can be the best backcourt in the NBA. He said, when we get to mesh, everyone who follows basketball will see why me and Bane can be, greedy talk, the best backcourt in the NBA because of how well versed we are in every aspect. We either are elite or we cover for each other. And I think that's really important because the further you go in, like, he starts to kind of talk about, the camaraderie aspect of this backcourt. And I think it's so important because I'll just read what he says. But just our conversation about life, about where he comes from, all the trials that he's faced, how he's gotten to this point in his career, being able to share vice versa, the things I hold true to my heart, close to my heart, the things that make me who I am, the people that make me who I am, getting to share that side of everything is how you truly create chemistry. That connection to where on the court I can trust Dez fully because I know Dez, and Dez can trust me 100% because he knows who Jalen Suggs is. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse for anybody that's been listening to this podcast for a while, but this is the importance of a team that is getting a new element, implementing a completely new wrinkle when it comes to what their offensive structure is going to be based around this season. And it's particularly a team that has been together truly for the last 3 to 4 years as part of this building process towards what now is, real expectations for the Orlando Magic for the first time in quite some time. And do I think that Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane could be the best backcourt in the NBA this season? I feel like that's tough when you think about the kind of backcourts that are across the NBA right now. The conversations for top backcourt can always be really interesting. And I do think that when you think about, when you focus on the synergy aspect of them playing off of one another, Jalen Suggs can guard, can be an elite level guard that can guard the best perimeter scorer, while Desmond Bane is a high level 3-point shooter and can take a lot of the on ball reps offensively off of Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs is a knockdown 3-point shooter. And he's a big-time slasher. Desmond Bane is one of the best catch-and-shoot 3-point shooters in the NBA, which means that Jalen Suggs can create open opportunities for Desmond Bane off of his slashing. There's a lot of two-man game stuff that they can really do. One of the last times I remember that this kind of declaration was made by an interesting pair was I remember that Zach LaVine when the Chicago Bulls first acquired DeMar DeRozan said that like he feels like they could be the best backcourt in the NBA, and they as a backcourt both made the All-Star game. Hilariously enough, I think it was in Chicago as well. So you can parse with whether or not you think that had something to do with it, but they had two All-Star guys as one of the best performing guard duos in the league that year. And arguably, I think you can make the argument that if the Clutch Player of the Year award was in existence at the time, DeMar DeRozan was on an absolute heater and probably would have been the all-around favorite for that award had it existed at the time. And it was a really strong season for the Chicago Bulls. I believe that same year that they made that declaration, if it wasn't for Lonzo Ball going down and really kind of hurting the back half of their regular season, that was a team that was making really huge headwaves in the beginning of the year. They were even the 1 seed at one point earlier on in that NBA season because they were just winning close games and like really gritty in situations where if the game was even like within 5 points in the final 2 minutes, like give the ball to DeMar, give the ball to Zach LaVine, like, and things are going to, like, special things are going to happen. It'll be interesting to see if the Orlando Magic can lean into a similar favor. Now, obviously, those two guys, being Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, were the best players on the team, so that was part of the functionality of it, as opposed to, on this team, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are those two lead guys. But that still doesn't mean that Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane can't be trusted to make plays, both offensively or defensively, in crunch time and really kind of solidify themselves as this special duo that can make things happen. So, do I think they're the best? Do I think they are going to be the best duo, backcourt wise, in the NBA this upcoming season? That's a tough pull. We'd have to kind of pull up all the backcourts in the NBA and really kind of get a range on where they kind of stack up. But do their skill sets match really well where there's a real opportunity for that to show its light? Yes. Do I think that this team could have a top 5 backcourt by the end of the NBA season? I think there's some real merit to that. That's going to come down to whether or not Jalen Suggs is healthy. That's going to come down to whether or not both of these guys are back or both shooting 40% from beyond the arc like they're capable of doing. There's a lot of different factors, right? So, but I like the confidence nonetheless because I do think that the synergy between these two guys gives them the ability to step up and step into this role of being an elite backcourt, despite the fact that they really don't have to be, right? The quote unquote elite duo that the Magic need to be playing up to an all-star, all-NBA caliber level is Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. But if these two guys are playing on a top 5 backcourt in the NBA level, paired with the fact that you got two guys that are going to be in all-star / all-NBA conversations this upcoming year, and don't get me wrong, Jalen Suggs might be in that conversation as well for all-NBA defensive team. Like, that's special stuff right there. I think the best assimilation, I use this team as an example all the time, and I think it's just because the Orlando Magic have really used them as a blueprint dating back to that championship year. I think that if Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane can be on the ilk of what Drew Holiday and Derek White were on that championship run for the Boston Celtics, next to Jason Tatum, next to Jaylen Brown, just like how they're being asked to be that next to Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. Remember, Al Horford was the starting center. Wendell Carter Jr. is their starting center. Who was Wendell Carter Jr.'s comp coming out of college? Al Horford. All of the lines say that they're using the Boston Celtics roster building method, more particularly this most recently built roster that won a championship only a season ago. And you look at what their structure is, and then you look at what the Orlando Magic have, and you say they're damn near carbon copies of each other. Now, you know, the question on whether or not Paolo Banchero is as good as Jason Tatum when healthy, or Franz Wagner is as good as Jaylen Brown when healthy, that's up to you to decide. But are they on par? Yes. Do I think Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane are on par with that version of Drew Holiday and that version of Derek White? Yes, I actually do. And so that means if that team went and made a championship run, that doesn't mean, okay, that means the Orlando Magic are. but that means they have a blueprint for a championship team. And I think Desmond Bain and Jalen Suggs can play to that role. I think they can play to those roles. And Drew Holiday and Derek White were arguably a top 5 backcourt that season because they were two of the best three-point Derek White was one of the best three-point shooters in the league. They both were two of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA. Derek White, I think, led the league in shots blocked as a guard. Drew Holiday, obviously, we know who he is as an individual defender on ball and in space. Like, they were stars in their role and were arguably a top 5 backcourt based off of just what they were able to bring to the table for that team that so desperately needed real versatility in the backcourt. And I think the Magic have something very similar. Not built the same in terms of obviously the literal player builds of those two guys, but built the same in terms of what their actual assignments on this team are. So very excited for this backcourt, and we'll just have to see. Speaking of duos, though, last but not least, Bleacher Report recently dropped an article talking about who they believe will be the this upcoming season's first-time All-Stars. And of the 5 guys that they predicted, 2 of the guys on the list were Franz Wagner and Desmond Bain. Now, this feels pretty straightforward, and this is not going to be too long of a topic because we've kind of talked about it in the past. But in the Eastern Conference, there's no Jason Tatum. There's no Tyrese Halliburton. Damian Lillard is out the paint. Desmond Bain is no longer in the West, which puts him in an interesting conversation because when you're talking about the guard position, and of course the All-Star game is, positionally fluid now, but still from the guard position, this is a guy who has real conversation. He's not behind a Steph Curry. He's not behind a Klay Thompson, who kind of inaugurally find themselves at least in the conversation for the All-Star game. He's not behind Ja Morant, he's his old teammate. He's not behind who's some other players, Jamal Murray, who's always in conversations for an All-Star for being a first-time All-Star. Actually, he was included on this list of potential first-time All-Stars this upcoming season, right? Like, he's now in an Eastern Conference where, let's see, from a healthy perspective, Jalen Brunson, let's say Tyrese Maxey should probably be in that conversation. Tyler Hero came off of an All-Star appearance last year. Cade Cunningham came off of an All-Star appearance last season. Kobe White got real All-Star buzz last year. I mean, let's be real. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, of course, those 2 guys are going to be in the conversation. But I mean, like the dog fight for getting a guard spot in the Eastern Conference, it's not what it's been in the past. And the East has always been a little lopsided comparison to the Western Conference. But let's be honest, like, if there was any real chance for Desmond Bain to make an All-Star team, not only is it this year because he's just simply in a more diluted conference and being in the East when it comes to guard play, but like particularly with some of the guys that are out, it opens up the opportunity that much more for him to be able to make the spot. And then Franz Wagner, there's a couple little elements to that one. Obviously, one time we discussed that this is a guy who, because of his European ties, could potentially make the third All-Star team that is like the NBA All-World All-Star team, which kind of increases the likelihood that he can make one of the All-Star squads. Also, he's just a guy that already can average 20 plus points per game. He averaged 24 points a game last year, nearly 6 rebounds and 5 assists, all career highs, and that was while shooting less than 30% from beyond the arc. If he can even become a league average shooter, I've said this before, if he can even be a league average shooter, 36%. First of all, that's an amazing jump from 30%. That's not marginal. That's actually almost an astronomical leap when you think about the fact that he's been a 30% or lower 3-point shooter the last 2 years. So to jump to 36%, given the fact that he's also increased his volume over the last 2 to 3 years, will be huge because now that means he's taking 5, 6, 7 3-point attempts per game and shooting league average. If he was scoring 24 points per game last year, that puts him in the near 30 PPG conversation. Now, of course, points distribution says that Desmond Bane got to get some. Healthy Jalen Suggs got to get some. Paulo Banchero obviously averaged, 24, 25 points a game last year. So, he's obviously going to be in the mix there. But just on the law of averages, like this is a guy that can average 30 points per game if he just becomes an average shooter. Right now, he's less than below average from beyond the arc as an NBA shooter. If he can be an average NBA shooter, he's averaging 30 PPG. You don't leave a guy. I say this knowing that Trae Young has been in this weird spot before, but it's not too many times you leave a guy who averages 30 PPG off an All-Star game, off an All-Star list. And for context, last year the Cleveland Cavaliers had 3 All-Stars in Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley. So in the Eastern Conference, there is a real likelihood that there could be a three All-Star team. And the Orlando Magic have a real chance to be one of those. Because can Desmond Bane be better than Darius Garland this upcoming season? I think so. I think he can. And the last time Paulo Banchero had a healthy season, he made the All-Star team. And I think if he's healthy again this season, he's going to make the All-Star team. So if Franz is averaging damn near 30 PPG, and Paulo Banchero is already a walking All-Star waiting to happen, and Desmond Bane is a guy that's been a fringe level All-Star that now in the Eastern Conference has a much better chance of making the squad. Orlando Magic got a trio, all with All-Star next to their name coming out of the 2025-26 season. That's a real building block for this young team. I'm so excited for Orlando Magic basketball to start, man. I am so excited, man. We are literally a day away from them having their first preseason game, which will give us a good amount to kind of dissect and get an understanding of some of the little nuances that this team is trying to build up. So I'm really excited. But you guys let me know in the comment section down below. Share your thoughts, man. Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, best backcourt in the NBA. How you guys feel? If they're not, tell me where they're ranked. If they are, tell me why, because I got to hear that. Tristan da Silva, Goga Bitadze, I'm very excited for them. Give me your thoughts on those two guys. I've been showing Tristan da Silva a pretty decent amount of love over the course of the summer. Goga Bitadze, I had to kind of come around to. I know a lot of you guys were kind of putting me on game in the comment section to kind of really pay that man his respect. And Eurobasket really helped me grow a newfound appreciation for Goga Bitadze while he's still in Orlando Magic uniform. So drop all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. I will be down there checking all of that stuff out. This has been another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new vids. And I will see you guys next time. But until then, peace.